Welcome back, everybody here in the room and online. Our final session today is on the next steps to creating low-power, energy-efficient networks. This session is going to attempt to bring together some of the key findings from the Green Network and from the DSP Leaders World Forum, and seeks to identify the next steps that are required from telcos and the vendor ecosystem. Are we able to create a declaration of intent to make the Green Network a reality, improving energy efficiency while enhancing the service innovation and delivery that are crucial to the success of digital service providers? Well, we'll find out from our guests, so let me now ask them to introduce themselves. From the far right, if you can give us your name and your job title and your company.
Yes, my name is John Berglund. I'm with Comba Telecom. I work with the radio access network product and solutions.
Okay, and yeah, where have you joined us from? Where have you come to be here?
Well, I'm living in Basingstoke. But
oh, right. Okay.
So it's not far away, but yes, Comba Telecom is RF house and it's based in Hong Kong.
Okay, but you walked here to get to the event?
More or less, okay. Might have used the car a little bit.
Okay. Francesca.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Francesca Serravalle, Head of Infrastructure and Energy, Vodafone UK.
Okay, thanks, Francesca.
Good afternoon, everyone. Daniel Piechocki. I'm coming from Poland, and I'm representing today Orange Poland from Warsaw. My responsibility is infrastructure, fixed, mobile, and data center.
Okay, thanks, Daniel, and welcome. And last but definitely not least, Ahmed.
Thanks. So Ahmed Hafez, I work in technology strategy, so I'm leading that in Deutsche Telekom in the group function, and I'm pleased to be amongst you.
Okay, great. Thanks for joining us for the final session. So before we start, let's take a look at the viewer poll that's been running throughout all of our Green Network sessions. Here's the question that we've been asking all afternoon. How can digital service providers or DSPs become more energy efficient? So you can see the 5 options there. If you haven't voted yet, please do so because you'll be influencing the results that we'll take a quick look at a bit later on. So if you're online, please do that now. If you're in the room, I urge you, if you haven't already voted, to please contribute. So we've got a number of talking points here in this final session, starting with what should network operators aim to achieve by 2025 to improve their green network credentials. So Ahmed, let's start with you on this one. What's the aim over the next couple of years?
We have been actually spending a lot of effort in order to try to bring down the energy consumption, so especially on the RAN side. So we started with the static energy features, which have actually reduced about 17 gigawatts annually on the consumption on the RAN across Europe. And we actually continue to work out that. So one of the things apparently connecting to the morning topic is AI, so AI features that could be implemented to sweat further without having an impact, backward impact on the users. On the other hand, we're also very actively trying to retire legacy and also move into fiber, which is going to create a significant reduction in the general consumption of energy. Beside that, we also try to see how can we forecast and be precise in forecasting demand. Because this kind of matrix between the coverage, capacity, and consumption, which we try to balance to be more efficient, so we actually don't need to just throw out capacity and coverage everywhere and then try to we optimize it in the first place. So we try to do an array of things that would actually help in different perspectives, but generally speaking is all around energy management, production of energy, storage, and of course efficiencies.
Okay. Daniel, is Orange Poland at a stage in its business or its network evolution that you're able to make some specific targets over the next couple of years? Has the introduction of 5G given extra impetus to whatever you're doing?
We are still waiting for auction and 5G, but today I am able to announce that the targets which we put ourselves for 2025 in terms of CO2 reduction comparing to 2015 and the second target in terms of the percentage of the renewables which we have in our portfolio, we know today that the targets for 2025 will be reached. So 2 years in advance taking into account all the prediction, all the contracts which we have, especially the purchase power agreements, we know that even if at the beginning of the discussion we're quite afraid of such kind of huge level of targets, now we after the work which was done during last 3-4 years, we know that we will reach it. But before I will answer the question how we reach it, I would start with kind of basic stuff. So first of all, you have to launch the program. The program has to report to someone of CEO level. You have to put the real targets, not just to talk about the decreases. So you have to put this to bonus assessment of the whole company, because it's our case that not only network, but everyone, including marketing, supply chain, has this decarbonization target. And after that, you have to concentrate on the initiatives, because it's not only one initiative, it was over 200 initiatives in very different domain.
Okay.
And I will not repeat this, what was said, because it's very comparable. I think everyone is going to the same conferences, and everyone knows his own business and weak points where to put the attention in terms of optimization. But yes, so this is the way.
Okay. And Francesca, obviously Vodafone has targets and great progress is being made. Might the targets even be updated for the coming years?
Yeah, well, we have very, very tight and ambitious timeline, because compared to group, we anticipated some of the Scope 1 and Scope 2 timeline from 2030 to 2027, so we've already been very aggressive. And then we want to be net zero, Scope 1 and Scope 2 by 2027, and then Scope 3, half them by 2030, and then net zero by 2040. So we are already ambitious. If we look at Scope 2, we know that delivering green network is a must to achieve this milestone. And what we are doing, we have to look at energy on two sides. One is the consumption and the other one is the demand. Consumption, we keep doing what we are doing because we're doing great. Consumption, we kept flat even if we're rolling out 5G.
Okay.
And this is because, as I mentioned yesterday, we have a strong governance. We have a forum that bring together the all organization, the IT, property, operation, finance, network. We ideate, we create pipeline of project. We have the exec sponsorship that help us to get the right resources and fund. And then we have strategic program, the 3G shutdown. We work with vendor to accelerate functionality that help to manage the radio resources in a more intelligent way, in line with the user distribution and the traffic, the real-time traffic. Rationalization program as well. So we want to exit some nodes, but we decided to accelerate the powering down of some legacy platform for those sites that we want to exit, because exit, of course, it takes more time.
Yeah.
And then the big data platform. For us, energy function, it's fully AI and data driven. And we use it also to do, the forecasting. It's really important because that will feed into the demand and the procurement and hedging strategy. And in terms of the demand, that is where we are really focusing a lot, because we have deployed solar panel on our core sites, which is generating 12% of the energy. And we are signing PPA. And by 2025, they will generate 45% of the total energy need of the network.
Okay, wow, okay, those are great stats.
Yeah.
Jan, anything you've heard here that you're not hearing from other network operators around the world?
Absolutely not. I mean, energy is in the focus now. Maybe what we're seeing with some of the other ones, they're looking more on the full life cycle, which we do as well. So when we design new platforms, we look through which materials we choose, which processes we use to manufacture these products, what type of characteristics this have internally, how we package material to be transported. So try to take the full scope from sort of beginning to the end of this, how you dispose of material in the end. But if I look at the sort of big portions of this where you have an impact somehow, those things that I just mentioned, they are dwarfed by how the equipment is actually used with the operator. So most benefits that we sort of provide are efficiency gains in the equipment. So for modernization programs, you swap something out and you get something that is significantly better. So lower power consumption, higher efficiencies, to sort of bring that target or help you reach these targets out there. So it's sort of interesting that way of moving forward, but it also opens up the opportunity to maybe think slightly differently around some of these topics. We offer a number of these benefits in terms of efficiency gains, and of course you can use it in a number of different ways. Right? Here we talk about energy, but if I look at the past of the industry, we've been very efficient. Well, if I go back 20 years, this radio domain area has evolved fantastic from that point. Right? Maybe we heard BT yesterday say, what was it? 1% of the traffic, 30% of the power drawn or energy consumption on that side. And there you can see the sort of fantastic development that we had during this period of time. When we developed 4G, we developed 5G, put it out there, which does all of these things much, much better. But of course, these are things that have been often consumed as improved service performance. You could easily well say, well, I could take that and use some of that characteristics as reducing my energy consumption as well. But that debate has really not happened until today. It's only today we are discussing how to alternatively use this. But energy has always been important, especially for this RAN area. If I can look back, maybe even 10 years back, this was on the agenda of how we calculated TCO. I've always been on the vendor side. We went to the operator, said, okay, look here, we're offering a better option here because the TCO is lower, right? But most of the gains that has been done after that, it's always been handed over to the end user.
Right.
Yeah, so we've done a number of gains, and you have, and I'm not blaming anyone for not using it the other way. I sold it as this, right? But there's always been this option, right? You have a gain. Do you want to use it to offset your carbon footprint? Or do you want to use it as maybe improving your end user experience or capacity in the network? So it will be interesting to see if there's some opinion around where the balance is as well.
Right. And also I just want to ask, have you noticed a difference in the past? You mentioned there that there's been a focus on CO2 emissions and stuff for a long time, but it wasn't such a big deal. But have you noticed that, say, compared to 5 years ago, that requests from operators now include very specific...
Oh, yes. I mean, the amount of benchmarking that we do. I mean, every month there's somebody asking, okay, I want to benchmark on these radios doing this and that, and benchmark on these antennas. So, yes, it's absolutely there right now. The focus is on how efficient is your equipment. How can we utilize this in the best possible way? And so this is also where we invested our R&D, so make significant progress in these green products, making them much, much higher efficiency, open up these interfaces with Open RAN so that you're able to control this in the best possible way. But if you look in the past, even, we're talking now about this AI and controlling it, turning things on and off. These have been there in the network for a long period of time, but it's been, how should I put it, a certain amount of conservative thinking around this. Nobody's there to turn these ones on. You could have sort of turned it on and show that it works. Yeah, but what if it impacts my KPIs with 0.1? I don't want to touch it, right? So it's been persistent. Now I'm very positive to this leadership conference here. What I hear from everyone is that we want to do this.
Yeah.
Then it's a question about sort of deploying it. I hear that you are doing it, which is even more encouraging, putting these features into works in the network.
Yeah, so it's certainly true that everybody is now not just talking about it, but trying to do this. But is it possible for everybody to focus on this as much as, for example, we've got 3 major tier 1 operators represented here, either at sort of big group level or part of a group. But is this same kind of focus and the same kind of efforts possible for even the smaller operators, the tier 3s and tier 4s, the smaller players? Daniel, maybe I can start with you because you're part of the Orange group, but obviously you're in one particular country. There are group targets and group initiatives, but how does that apply across the group in the different operating companies?
When we talk about the green network, there are two pillars of this strategy, which was discussed already. So one is efficiency, and second one is purchasing. So in terms of efficiency, everyone has to follow the same rules in terms of cooling, ventilation, RAN sharing, RAN power feature implementation, supported by big data, and so on and so on. So I would say that it's a must for everyone in the group or outside the group, tier 1, 2, 3, and so on. The differentiator is the purchasing, because there is very regulated, country-specific, and now the starting point is different, because when you have the country mix, 80, like in Poland, 80% coming energy from coal, 20 from renewables, and the factor is that to produce 1 kilowatts, we are producing something like 900 tons of CO2, comparing to France when it's only less than 40 kilo.
Okay.
So the starting level, first of all, it's when we are talking about decarbonization, it's much more country dependent. And I would say in the purchasing area, the bigger have easier, because when I have the 500 gigawatts to buy to PPAs, it's much more, first of all, easier to find someone who will want to deal with me, with Orange, which is credible, which take the credit to build the wind farm and so on. And it's much more easier for me to hide the consulting cost, because it's a kind of knowledge not visible in the telco. We have to be supported by a very specific branch in this area. So such kind of consulting costs, how to do it, how to what kind of strategy, and how to finish the transaction, it's much more, I would say, in the bigger scale, not so visible. So it's a kind of percent, 0 point something of the percent. So in my opinion, for the tier 2 or 3, the purchasing can be challenged, and it's kind of specific knowledge which maybe they don't have.
Okay.
Yeah. And just to finish, because one very important point, what can be easy for them, but I don't think it's a good direction, it's just to buy a guarantee of origin. So it's something very popular on the market. It's for me kind of painting of the grass with the green farb, because it doesn't fully support the new sources of the green energy. It's, of course, supports somehow of this industry, but it doesn't create any additional capacity. And it creates some additional cost, because you are just buying the paper and nothing more.
Right.
So you don't have the price stability like you have by purchase power agreement, and you are not able long-term to stabilize your significant budget line like its energy. So I see challenges for tier 3 and 2 in this area.
Okay. And Ahmed, any sort of visibility in not only within the Deutsche Telekom group, but outside of it as well, in terms of what kind of challenges these bring for the smaller operators?
I tend to agree with all what Daniels have said. There is one maybe positive angle before I get to the challenges, is that the entire industry is going in the same direction. So one of the big things that required scale in the past is that if we want to talk to chipset suppliers or hardware suppliers, we had to have enough scale. But today, this is happening from everybody, so tier 2 and tier 3 would leverage that, so we can harvest what we are actually pushing for. So the entire industry is going in that direction. But when it comes to innovation, they would find challenges. So we try things. We try new storage mechanisms. We try to sustainable sites mechanisms. We try to go into spaces that we as a group, because we have enough size and scale, that we can actually do this kind of innovations, trial them, figure them out, spend money to prove that concept and get it done. Of course, once that's done, that is open for everybody to embrace, because then you have an example you can actually reuse or take on. So these kind of elements are the elements that are making is more difficult. And back to the discussion of that things are improving. Now energy is a burning platform, so everyone wants to save energy. Everyone wants to reduce CO2, so it's a collective target, and this is rarely happening across the industry. So you talk to anyone randomly, you would find them telling you that we want to have better energy efficiency, we want to reduce the CO2 carbon footprint, and we want to make sure that we are sustainable, scope 1, 2, and 3. So these are top of mind of the entire industry. So I can't really say that one stands out. We all stand together, which is really making a big difference, and will help Tier 2 and Tier 3 as well, quite significantly.
Okay. And before I just come to see if there's any questions from the audience.
Maybe I can take point on that. What we see when we interact with the market is the Vodafones and the Deutsche Telecoms and the Oranges and the Telefonicas, yes, they are very hard on this one, right? They want to make sure that this works and it goes forward. But if I look outside Europe and B to some small ones, tier 3, tier 4, so whatever you want to call them, yes, of course they want as well, but it is not the same drive. So, of course, they're taking the fruits of all the work that we do here, but the drive is not there in the same way. Their business agendas are different. A, they're not in Europe and had this shock in many cases. B, maybe this is not the energy bill that is the worst one for them. It is customer acquisition or something like that, if you look at sort of the smaller ones. So they do have different agendas and they don't drive it as hard, but when there's 3-4 groups are driving it, yes, of course, everybody jumps and tries to make something out of it.
Okay. I would think that, that's my opinion, that the driver should be the same, right? Because if we deliver a green agenda, we are able to, a green network, we're able to control the OPEX, right? Which is a challenge for everyone, tier 2, 3, tier 1. And we're also able to deliver on our sustainability agenda, which should be high and top priority for everyone. What I think it is different is the opportunity space and the investment that we can do, because we invest millions in energy efficiency initiative. Can they do that? No, especially for the innovative project. Solar panel, those PPA, they have multi-year payback, 5-year plus. I mean, tier 3, 4, they're not going to invest in projects that have more than 2 to 3 years payback. I think that is the main difference between us and smaller operators.
Yeah, and some of, as you say, some of the efforts that you do, they require a large lump sum up front somehow.
Yes.
That you integrate it with the other systems and make this work, and of course becomes unfeasible if you're a tier 4. Whereas your tier 1 group, you just absorb the cost and make sure that you get a payback in a reasonable time.
Yeah, especially with the cost of borrowing going up as well recently, that hasn't helped. So we've actually got an online question I'll come to first before I see if there's anything from the floor, but we've got a question that's coming from our online audience, and that is, what could be the role of neutral host companies in cities particularly where there are small cells, in terms of saving energy and the boost that it could give to mobile network operators in terms of enabling mobile edge compute capabilities. So in terms of, this has really come back to I guess, to the network sharing option. What kind of impact, what kind of difference could this make? Is this something that's being thought about at the moment, Francesca?
I mean, I guess it really depends on how much you share, and obviously, if it's in the use case, if it is a coverage play, then an indoor, then it makes total sense and there will be benefit. I think for the outdoor space, and when you want to create, some capacity layer, you want to do that to differentiate, right, the customer experience. So in that sense, I guess from an energy perspective, yes, it could make sense. From a customer experience perspective, I think we'd probably want to have our own boosting layer to really drive more customer experience.
Okay. Any thoughts from over here on the network sharing role of neutral hosts?
I think if we talk about things like uncovered areas or rural areas or far rural or underserved in general, there could be, of course, a space for such a model. And it's, as you correctly said, Ray, it's one type of network sharing. So this one type of network sharing can work, and active sharing proven to be more efficient, especially in the areas that we just want to make sure that there's a thin layer of coverage, or at least some coverage are there. It's not a competition area, or not a high capacity demand area where this may not work. But there, of course, there is room for that, definitely.
Okay. On the macro level, for sure, and it's proven in our country, because we implemented this model of network sharing with T-Mobile. It's up to minus 30% of the energy. So it's a significant impact in terms of, and we are following this, I would say, concept on the DAS level, indoors and so on. So if it's possible, we are trying to build installation together and reuse it by any other carriers.
Okay.
I think just one thing, if on the MEC side, I didn't comment, so I'm not aware of any quantitative analysis that we have done, but I would imagine there are two things we need to look at. One, depending on how you use the business model behind MEC, if we have some, app hosting and we terminate the traffic there, of course we save on the backbone, but it's also true that, we are going towards distributed architecture, we're going to have more servers. So I have heard contrasting opinion, and I think we still need to answer that question.
I think we can have a 3-hour panel just to discuss what edge is. And so, I mean, on that angle, I fully agree with you. It depends on, of course, what is the definition of edge, because sometimes edge comes as a definition just closer to the customer. It's not really between the core and the RAN, so it's not a hyper distribution. Then it's a different discussion. But you're right. I mean, if this is what let's say the operator's definition of edge, which is between the core and the RAN, then you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Yes, I think this question sounded like it was quite sort of, looking a little bit into the future, talking about small cells within cities. So we're a little way off there. So I'm just going to check the room there and see if there are any. Yes, we have a hand up here at the front. And then also, as well, I need to keep an eye on the time once we've answered this question, so I might compress what comes after this. But if name and company, please.
Just a little question about the overbuilding, but in the dense areas of competition. I have to make the example of what is happening in Buenos Aires, that we don't have that much investment in place, but all the investment is done in the place of high competition, so there is a waste of everything there. And but what do you think about the future and the short future? Because we are dealing with putting all the resources for the different kind of networks, the 10 gig and this stuff. And we are building 3 or 4 networks in the downtown area of London, and Buenos Aires like this. So what do you think in energy efficiency, what can be done, or what do you think in general?
Okay, so I mean, it sounds like the question here is really about, is there a balance between the overbuilding, especially in the urban areas, but with the need to, lower?
I can take a stab. I mean, I think London still have some congestion. So, so just from my point of view is that, of course, you have to put all the building blocks together. So yes, you're right, there is a lot of capacity, but this capacity is consumed, especially in busy hours. Then we put features that we switch off these layers that are unneeded when no one is using them. Then you put AI on top of the features that you can even go below if there is no one needing that throughput capacity. So the point here is that we have to wait between the balance, as Ray was saying, balance between performance and what capacity that customers really need versus energy efficiency. But I would also think that these areas are not widespread, so these will be spots, the hot spots of the cities, the high cities. Of course, they are quite big, but if you consider the entire set of sites, the conditions should be a little better. So.
Okay. Just to come to a couple of final talking points then, if I start with you, Jan. What's the main message that we need to be sending out to the industry about achieving greater energy efficiency in this sector, and how does that marry up with the move towards more cloud-native, cloud-centric, and AI-enabled networks?
Oh, that was a big question.
And if you could give us an answer in about 20 seconds.
Yes.
What's the main message out there? Is it move faster, everybody do more?
Yeah, but technology is constantly evolving. We're doing better and better things all the time. So the road forward to be able to, we still want these networks. We don't want them to shut down. We want to deliver the traffic. We want to do the best thing. So the faster you take into account all the modernization that we are able to provide in different areas, the better you will be off with this. And it is both for sort of the passive stuff that I talked about, or hardware-oriented things, but also the software. And I think it's encouraging to hear that the software is being much, much more considered at this point of time. Hardware has always been easy. It's easy. I can calculate exactly what savings you have, and okay, this is what you have, and please take it. And then you say, okay, you're charging too much, but that's maybe a different thing, right? So that, if we do all these steps forward, then of course what we are getting to a point is that we will have the most or best possible energy efficiency at that point of time. Then the rest of it is these offset things that we've been discussing, the zonal panels, how you create this energy and how you do. And I do recognize this situation that you described, the Polish market. Yes, we do have different ways of generating the energy, and it creates different footprints in there. But I do think that the way forward is also looking at the sort of supply side of the energy and how to deal with that. It's not just, I plant more trees, right? You're laughing, but a few years back, I had a discussion with one of the CTOs and I said, look, if you're going to try to do these different things, you know you will consume more energy. And he said, no worries, I'll plant more trees. So but the mindset have changed from this sort of superficial way of treating this as, yes, there's a green agenda, yes, we need to do something, yes, or maybe tree planting was one of the solutions to it, to be much more holistic, see what we can do in every single area. What these guys are bearing witness to is they are actually doing it.
Okay. Francesca, what can really be achieved as networks evolve here over the next few years, and what would you like to see from the rest of the industry that could help you with your job?
Yeah, okay. First things I want to say is that it is possible to keep network consumption flat even if we're rolling out 5G. And again, yes, governance collaboration is key, but an innovation mindset is key, right? Where we use a cloud-centric approach and our own data scientists to do experiment in 8 weeks using agile methodology, see whether it works, whether it delivers what we wanted to based on specific user story. If deliver the benefit, let's productize. If not, let's move on. We have another idea on the backlog. So I think this is important. And then network modernization, because moving to cloud native network, well, it means that on the same hardware we have different network function, and the more workload it will last and the more energy efficient it will be. AI will be a big thing. So there are many use cases, mainly on FCAPs, but if we focus on AI to drive more synergy between the application and the network, it means we have a network dimension exactly for the traffic that we want to deliver. And then being customer-centric, it means that we have topology that are service-driven. So if we do that, AI, customer-centric, cloud-native, we drive modernization, we accelerate so that we decommission the legacy technology and IT stack, I think we're done.
Let's see how we're getting on by this time next year.
Thanks, Francesca.
Daniel, what would you like to see from the industry that could help?
I am a fan of this concept, zero load, zero watts. So the development of intelligent features, which we already applied on the RAN network, it's very advanced for 4G. We see some, I would say, first features coming for the 5G, but there is still room of potential in this area, starting with the standardization and hold the push on the vendors. So I believe that this concept, zero watt, zero load, can be extended not only for mobile, but as well for other technologies on the fixed side and so on. And here I see a big potential. Coming to the first your question in terms of takeaways, I think that energy started to be kind of differentiator, kind of strategy factor for the carriers, which are able, first of all, to present themselves on the different way to the customer who is taking care for you are green, you are not green, you are producing carbon or not, and it's impacting the customer decision. And secondly, it started to be very, very important factor in the calculation of the costs of services and so on, because it's a million. So it can position very well every carriers differently. Depends on the decision in terms of optimization and hedging strategy.
Okay.
Because before it was easy, the price for everyone was quite similar, plus 5% here or here, but now we see that they are different, I would say, mechanisms and possibilities, and the differences between the carriers can be much more bigger than before.
Ahmed, what would you like to see from the industry? What's your main message in terms of the green network agenda?
I mean, not trying not to repeat what was said, because I do agree with everything was said. I'll take a trail from what Jan said about software. So I think we are focusing too much on hardware and chipsets and all that, which is absolutely right. But the software has a lot to do. And talking about AI, for instance, and new technologies like blockchain and others, they consume a lot of energy by virtue of how they are designed. So we are now designing hardwares that would actually fit more to these kind of things. So all the industry needs to do that. And this helped actually recently, because they dropped this kind of race, which had been 6 months doubling demand on AI just for compute. Now it's down to 10 months, every 10 months. But still, they have challenge to overcome. But there is also a big part on the software companies and software developers. They need to optimize their software to see what are the ways that the software itself would use lesser cycles from the compute, can do things much faster. So there is the notion of compact models for AI. There is the notion of how to actually utilize part of the parameters that makes the big difference, but rather than the whole sort of parameters. These kind of things has to come much more, and of course, energy and in whatever is being manufactured had been number one. And I will mention another thing, which is in the standards themselves, when they build the standards. You know, I mean, sometimes you keep live updates, or keep the state of the device in a certain state, or keep the battery in a certain state. How do you do? This can change. And you have a good example of narrowband IoT, which is dealing with low battery consumption. Why don't we do things like that also without impacting user experience? So we need to innovate further on technology side to consume less energy and deliver even better service. And this is the challenge. So everybody collectively should work on the targets, whether that's even from the standards on paper and theory, in universities, in standard bodies, everyone should work on the same direction.
Okay. So we're coming towards the end of the time, the end of the session. So we just wanted to end with a sort of a bit of a wrap up and get some key takeaways from the 2 days from DSP leaders and from Green Network from our panelists. So Jan, if we can start with you, what's the one key takeaway from your time here over the past couple of days?
I think the biggest takeaway was the understanding of how much power this AI will consume if we do everything. In my wildest mind, I hadn't thought about that problem, that we would end up with that. Now, maybe AI doesn't go everywhere, so we don't know yet, right? But it is a risk that it is becoming a cost burden as well to this. Otherwise, if you look at these 2 days, I see an industry looking for transformation and looking for ways to transform. I see some great leadership and ideas how to do it, but we still need to do it. So we at this point, we're mostly talking.
And we'll be back next year talking, but hopefully talking about some of the progress we've been making as well. Francesca, key takeaway?
Okay, first one, that we can deliver a green network without impacting the service innovation. Second point, we need to collaborate more, because in a few years' time, service will span more networks. We're going towards network of networks, and will traverse all the ICT stack. So we need to collaborate more, especially if we want to move from tracking the network efficiency to tracking the service efficiency. Third one, everyone loved this event. There is a great balance between technical, business, and laugh. And the fourth one, yesterday evening was a blast. Thank you. That's
fantastic. Daniel.
For me, it's very positive that all the carriers believes that they still can be innovative. So it was. So it's really positive that that we can do it. And it, when I'm over 200% spending all the time on the energy, so it was for me very inspiration to hear about the role of R&D or to discuss innovative services approach, including how we are dealing with AI. So a little bit not directly energy and green, but something what is now as well the hot topic in our company.
Okay, excellent, thank you. And Ahmed?
So I have a few takeaways. One of the key takeaways for me is that also what Francesca said is that we need to work together much more. So we kind of recognize that partnering together and working together the same problems could help all of us. And it's not something that we need to compete on when it comes to these angles. The other part is that it's clear there also many of the topics we discussed have intrinsically the same problems, like skill gaps, problems of how we actually orchestrate them, how do we manage them, how to unify them. So like cloud, automation, AI, even energy. So there is a great set of commonality. And the third one, which is let's say, the kind of gap between the technology pace that we're going and us keeping up with that technology pace. You see that every one of us doing a lot of transformations, a lot of work and so on, and I bet that everyone have shortage in skills and in people that they need to do. They can do more, but they need to more experts and more things to do that. There is a lot to do, but it's actually the pace is so fast, and then we need to do something about that. And that comes to the partnering and then working together and with our partners in the industry and together so to get to achieve something faster.
Okay. Fantastic. Well, thanks everybody for those thoughts. We're nearly at the end of this session, but before we go, we need to check on our viewer poll, the one that we've been running through the 3 green network sessions. So let's remind ourselves of the question, how can digital service providers become more energy efficient? And we can see there, okay, out in the lead with most votes, invest in innovative technology solutions. So clearly a lot of the vendors have been voting. Extending hardware life cycles has got the least number of votes. That's actually a bit of a surprise, but this poll is still open, so please carry on voting, and we'll be analysing all of the results of all of the polls on Telecom TV. Sure.
Extension of the hardware life cycle. So I think we thought of the opposite. We were saying actually if you would retire legacy faster, you could save. So that's a little bit on the other direction. So
it is counterproductive to keep them in the field, the old equipment that is not as good as the new one, right?
Yeah, indeed.
Yes, it's an interesting stat in there. Let's see if it changes.
It's good that it's low. So.
But as I said, the sort of effort to make equipment is just a dwarf compared to how it is in the service line,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
So.
Okay, I couldn't quite catch that, Neil, but we have to, unfortunately, we have to close that, but keep that in mind, and that's something we can definitely, obviously, talk about next time. That's almost the end of the DSP Leaders Forum for another year. We're going to hang on here for a second while Guy comes to wrap up, but first, let's please show our appreciation for our final set of panelists. Thank you very much.